Welcome to my PowerPoint about Librams. So we're going to start with the original support for Librams all the way back from 2020 in Ashes of Outlands, where Librams come from. You start with Aldor Attendant, which was 2 mana 2/3, but now it's a 1 mana 1/3, and now it's a Draenei actually. Battlecry reduced the cost of your Librams by 1 this game. I mean, Aldor Attendant, when it was 2 mana, sucked. Librams were genuinely terrible when Aldor Attendant cost 2 mana, but unsurprisingly, when you cut a card's mana cost in half, it becomes significantly better. You have Aldor Truthseeker, which is a 5 mana 4/6 Draenei. Taunt, Battlecry, reduce the cost of your Librams by 2 this game. Aldor Truthseeker, I mean, it was just such a good stopgap. When you played it, you could instantly play Libram of Wisdom, and the fact that, it was such a good stat body taunt as well really helped the archetype. I think if this card didn't have taunt or something, or actually I think if it specifically didn't have taunt, I think the archetype would have been hurt severely, because unlike, one of the new cards we'll get to, Interstellar Wayfarer, taunt on a big body is significantly better than Interstellar Wayfarer when we get there. And Lady Liadrin, 7 mana 4/6 Battlecry, add a copy of each spell you cast on friendly characters this game to your hand. So the whole idea is that you would get all of the Librams back that you cast on friendly characters, and that's really good. I think Liadrin actually used to be minions. I might be wrong about that, but I remember you had to play Libram of Hope on your minions to get it back, but it now says character. They might have changed Liadrin when they added it to the core set. I do not know off the top of my head, but that might be a thing. So when Librams first came out in Ashes of Outlands, they kind of weren't that good. To be fair, Ashes of Outlands was Demon Hunter's expansion, and no other class really could play the game. You could say, Warrior was pretty good into Demon Hunter, but it was really just Demon Hunter's time to shine. It didn't really matter until Skullomance, and when Skullomance came around, you got cards like Penflinger, 1 mana 1/1, Battlecry, deal 1 damage, now it's nerfed to a minion, Spell Burst, return this to your hand. Penflinger, when you are playing a repeatable spell every single turn, multiple times per turn, really racked up in damage. It really was efficient at fighting for board. Penflinger is such an iconic card for a lot of reasons, and a lot of people remember its voice line, "Hey, loser!" And then there's Animated Broomstick. 1 mana 1/1, rush, Battlecry, give your other minions rush. This was incredibly valuable in the fact that it would give your minions rush so they could keep bumping and making more use of Libram of Wisdom. Of course, Libram of Wisdom was the main card of the original Libram set, and trying to make it as best as possible really did matter a lot. This original wave of support for Librams, I mean, you could technically include 2021 support, but there wasn't that much. There's some, but there wasn't that much, and it kind of died out by United and Stormwind. This original 2020 wave is really good. I think that if they put all of these cards in Standard, they would all see play. All of these cards reverted. I mean, Penflinger reverted. Would instantly see play. I mean, Penflinger would probably see play, even alone, it would see play. But I think all of these ones would see play because, well, the support for the 2020 cards is just objectively better than the support for the 2024 cards. However, the 2024 Librams are stronger than the 2020 Librams. I know that that's hard to understand because, we so vividly remember cards like Libram of Hope and Libram of Wisdom, but they are. And, it makes sense, right? Because the support is weaker, right? The cards aren't nearly as efficient as something like Outdoor Attendant or Outdoor Truthseeker. They just aren't. But let's talk about the 2020 Librams. We start with Libram of Wisdom. Definitely the most iconic. It is a 2 mana spell, 2 mana holy spell. They're all holy spells, except for Libram of Judgment, but whatever. Give a minion +1/+1 and Death Rattle, add Libram of Wisdom to your hand. So you would play it on a minion, you'd bump it off, you'd get it back, you'd play it on a minion, bump it off, get it back, play it on a minion, bump it off, get it back. That's why Rush was so important, because you would play it on your minions, what you would do is you give your minions Rush, you buff one of them, bump it, it would die, you would play it again, the minions would still have Rush because of course they would, and then you would get a lot of value through trading your minions, and because of them dying and playing more Librams of Wisdom, you can send more Penflinger's face. Wow, I know. Libram of Wisdom is probably the best of the original, it's definitely the best of the original 3, and then definitely the best of the original 4, but The other two were still relatively good, especially for their time. It's just, again, compared to the new ones, Libram of Hope is a 9-mana holy spell, restore 8 health, summon an 8/8 Guardian with Taunt and Divine Shield. Libram of Hope, like I said, I'm pretty sure Linessa used to say when spells you played on your minions, not characters. So it was actually really awkward to play Libram of Hope, because you either had to play it on your minion to get it back from Linessa, or you played it on yourself and you wouldn't be getting it back later in the game. And not getting it back later in the game really was a big loss in value in a deck that was all about value. So losing out on that kind of did hurt a lot. So Libram of Hope, like, surprisingly was very skill testy, because you had to understand the game state enough to be like, okay, I can heal here and use this health more than I need this card again later. I need another copy. So I know that sounds like intuitive to a lot of players, but it really isn't when you have to consider the decks that you're going up against. You're going up against like Questline Warlock, where you needed to be healing. You're going up against like Hand Buff Warrior, where they were just building giant boards. You needed to have repeatable like giant taunts, stuff like that. So, I mean, not even including like aggro Demon Hunters and stuff like that, where you wanted to heal, but like it's aggro Demon Hunters, so they had, you know, ways to get through taunts even. So, yeah. Libram of Justice is a 5-mana holy spell. Equip a 1/4 weapon. Change the health of all enemy minions to 1. This is just good. It's a quality with a slight upside, because you're typically playing this for around 2 to 3 mana, which is, you know, about equality, including the 1/4 weapon. But you also get the weapon to swing at enemies. And I mean, Libram of Justice, it might be it's not the worst actually, because Libram of Judgment, but it's not the best of them. But it's still good, right? Like, it's still, you still had to run 2 copies of this most of the time. It's still very powerful, and I wouldn't say that there's ever reason to not run it, right? Because, you know, getting a quality for 1 mana or less is pretty good, right? And then the weapon still added up. Still a 1/4 weapon, still a lot of chip damage that can be used to fight for board or just go face. And then there's Libram of Judgment. 7 mana, 5/3, corrupt, gain lifesteal. So it does get discounted by all of the, you know, Librams, but it just wasn't that good. Like, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't think most Libram decks were running this at all. Maybe they're running it as a one-of, and even that wasn't that great. It's just, like, not that good. You have so many weapons as Paladin already, and, like, playing this expensive weapon that its only upside is, like, you get some healing from it, when, again, you're playing Paladin, which is probably one of, if not the highest healing class in the entire game. It just doesn't make any sense to be running this. I'm going to be honest with you. And, like, I don't know. Libram of Judgment, it's, like, on paper, it seems fine, right? You could get, like, a 4 mana, 5/3 weapon with lifesteal. That's not terrible, but, right? Kind of, Then we have the Libram support from 2024. These cards are just not as strong. They just really aren't, but they're still okay. We start with Yarel, Beacon of Hope. It is a 5-mana 4/3 Draenei with Rush, Death Rattle. Get 3 different Librams from an older timeline. It's just get the old 3 Librams from Ashes Outlands, like everyone but Judgment. And I mean, I think Yarel is like fine if you're trying to play a slow Libram deck where you want the value, but the new Librams want you to play more aggressively than the old Librams did, and that means Yarel kind of doesn't make sense in the deck. It just is too slow, and the old Librams were more about like value and all of that, but the new ones really want you to play aggressively, and we'll get to that when we look at them. But Yarel just doesn't really make the cut in that deck, in my opinion, if you're playing an aggressive style. Maybe if like there's a slower one, that's okay, yeah, but Libram Paladin hasn't really been that good. It's playable, do not get me wrong, but it's not that good right now, and maybe it will get buffed or something, but it's definitely not like the #1 deck on people's radars, especially compared to how popular and strong it was back in the day. So I'm a little iffy on how I rate Yarel, but yeah. You have Interstellar Researcher, is a 2-mana 2/2 Draenei, Battlecry and Spellburst, draw Libram. That's not as good as it sounds. So every Libram, aside from Judgment, is a holy spell. And yeah, technically it's 2-mana 2/2, draw 2, but you also could have played Knight of Anointment in the past, which is a 1-mana 1/1 draw 1. And you're drawing your Librams anyway, because Night of Anointment was 1-mana 1/1 draw a holy spell that you could also, I guess you couldn't tutor in Standard, but you could tutor in Wild with Crystology. I'm not saying Interstellar Researcher is a bad card. It is a good card, but it's not like it's better than what Librams had originally. I don't know. And you have Hi-Ho Silverwing in the game now, which again is still 2-mana 2/1 Divine Shield, Battle or Death Rattle, draw a holy spell, which, yeah, I guess it is a little worse than Interstellar Researcher, but if you're dropping Researcher on 2 and you aren't able to spell burst it, then it just is worse than Night of Anointment and Hi-Ho Silverwing if you can't spell burst it on 2, which is unfortunate. I'm gonna do the discounters last. I put them on my slide a little awkwardly. You have Sunsapper Linessa, which is a 5-mana 2/6 Rogue Taurus. Your spells that cost 2 or less cast twice. All of the Librams want you to discount them to 0, which means Linessa casting them twice is really good. And because you're running Linessa, you can run cards like Seashell, which is 3-mana 3/2 Pirate. Battlecry, the next card you play from non-rogue class, costs 2 less. Again, you want the Librams to cost 0. So Seashell, making them cost 0, counts. Which means Seashell is actually a really good card in your Libram decks. But here's part of the reason why I say the Libram support is worse. Yeah, Interstellar Researcher, you can make an argument that is kind of better or worse, whatever. So, like Linessa and Seashell, they're really strong cards. We know they're really strong. But then we get to Interstellar Wayfarer. I already talked about how much worse this card is than Outer Attendant, or not Outer Attendant, Outer Truthseeker, and it really does show. 4-mana 4/2 Draenei, Divine Shield, Battlecry, reduce the cost of your Librams by 1 this game. It has the same Battlecry as the 1-drop on a 4-mana 4/2 body with Divine Shield. That's just objectively bad. I don't know what to say. It just is bad. I get that you're technically able to buff it a lot more than you would with Libram of Wisdom, because Wisdom was only +1/+1, and Divinity is +3/+3, but it's still terrible. And you can't discount your Librams fully until, like, turn 5 at the earliest. It's just really bad. It's so bad. I don't know why it's like this. If it was discount by 2, it would be a great card. It would be a strong card. It'd be a really good card. But at 1, it's just terrible. It's really bad. And then there's Interstellar Star Slicer. Yeah, Star Slicer is better than Wayfarer by a good margin, but it's still not the best discounter by a lot. I still think that if you're playing a wild deck, you run a Truthseeker and Attendant, because Star Slicer isn't consistent enough in discounting your Librams. It is a 3-mana 2/3 weapon with Battlecry and Death Rattle. Reduce the cost of your Librams by 1 this game. That means when you play Star Slicer, it takes 3 turns of swinging, including the turn you played it, to be discounted by 2. Unlike, Truthseeker, which just happens instantly. Yes, they technically happen at the same time, but a 3-mana 2/3 weapon is not as good as a 5-mana 4/6 with Taunt, in my opinion. It just isn't. And I don't think that that's that hot of a take. Like, a 3-mana 2/3 weapon with effect, like, if we say that a 3-mana 2/3 weapon has no text, like with no text, versus a 5-mana 4/6 Taunt with no text, because they have the same they have the same text otherwise. You get what I'm saying, right? The 4/6 Taunt is just so much better. Especially because the instant you play the Taunt, you can actually buff it. You can't buff the Star Slicer with any of the Librams. So the Taunt was actually, a 5/7 Taunt, or a 6/8 Taunt, versus just a 3-mana 2/3 weapon and nothing else. I don't know. Like I'm saying, I think the support is a lot worse, but we gotta look at how strong these Librams are. Look at how good these are. We start with Libram of Faith. It is a 6-mana holy spell. Summon 3/3 Draenei with Divine Shield. If this costs 0, give them Rush. So, 6 mana, summon 9/9 with Divine Shield. That's maybe not the best ever. It's definitely very mana efficient. Like when you actually calculate the mana, a 2-mana 3/3, with Divine Shield would be the best 2-mit drop ever, right? That's like word for word what Vicious Syndicate wrote about this when they wrote it, because, but at 6 mana, it's not the best. At 4 mana, it's really good. At 3 mana, it's really good. At 2 or 3 or less mana, it's really good. And at 0 mana, it has Rush built in. And that's really good, especially when you combine it with cards like Crusader's Aura, or just anything that likes to have rush. I think Libram of Faith, it's not the best of the Librams, do not get me wrong. I think it's like, I think overall, overarching, it's the third best Libram overall, but it's the second best of these. Then you have Libram of Clarity. It is a 3-mana holy spell. Draw 2 minions. If this costs 0, give them +2/+1. I think, again, overall on the Librams, I think this is the 4th best Libram. It's efficient, right? 3-mana draw 2 minions is already really good. And then it can be discounted really easily. Giving them +2/+1 when you get to 0 is very nice, actually. Because while Interstellar Wayfarer does suck, if you are able to hit it at 0, really hard. It's really, really hard. But if you are able to, it's not the worst thing ever because it will become a 6/3 with Divine Shield. And that's not terrible. I mean, hitting anything else with buffs is obviously great, right? Like, you can just hit your... It doesn't even matter what you hit. Just hitting minions and giving them buffs for free is just very good. The 0-mana draw 2 is, of course, really strong. I mean, we've seen that a million times over. 0-mana draw 2 is being really good. Oh man, sorry. I just woke up. I had to redo this video. I had another one that I was planning on uploading today, and I didn't like it, and that's why this one's gonna be late if you're watching this far in the video. And then we have Libram of Divinity. 4-mana, holy spell, give a minion +3/+3. If it costs 0, return this to your hand at the end of your turn. So if you aren't fully discounting Libram of Divinity, it's one of the worst Librams by far. But if you do fully discount it, it's the best Libram. It just is. The second best one is Wisdom. If you hadn't guessed, it is Wisdom. I think it goes Divinity, Wisdom, Faith, Clarity, Hope, Justice, and then Judgment. The weapon is the worst one. It just is. It's so bad. But Libram of Divinity, if you are able to play it for 0 mana, you just get a bunch of damage. You just get so much damage. You can give a minion +6/+6 every single turn. As long as you have a minion on board, that's 6 damage every single turn. You can have charge minions with it, like Leroy or Deckhand, and that's really good. I mean, we've already known that charge minions and Paladin are really strong, and who could have guessed, you know, giving them +6/+6 for free? It's really good. Who could have guessed that? Like, Libram of Divinity, everything about it just goes for it, right? It's not that bad of a discount, because you could play 2 Star Slicers and fully discount it. You can play, like, 2 Aldor Attendants, which you could tutor with Crystology and Wild, and a Star Slicer to discount it. And even Seashell can discount it, like, early enough so you can play it just to fight for board, and that does matter sometimes, you know, playing Seashell just to discount it to fight for board. I've seen that, like, be really important, especially to put it on, like, a taunt minion. Or a lifesteal minion. Sorry. And it's just good. I don't know. Like, Libram of Divinity, I didn't think it would be the best one. I really thought Libram of Clarity would be the best one because, you know, 0-mana draw 2. But Libram of Divinity, it just surprised me so much how strong it is, how much damage you are able to get out of it. And Paladin likes having repeatable spells. Who could have guessed? Paladin likes having a repeatable spell that does a lot of stats. Like, Wisdom was a lot better because it had a lot of better support, right? Wisdom had Pedflinger at the time, and it had, you know, animated Broomstick to give its minions rush and be able to use it more efficiently. You don't really have that in Standard nowadays, but you do have better minions that want to be buffed by bigger buffs, right? So Libram of Divinity does a lot better in that way. That's going to be it for me. If you guys enjoyed, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me what you think down below. What's your favorite Libram? Mine is still probably Wisdom. I'm going to be honest with you. I love playing with Pedflinger. I think Divinity is still a close second because it's good. And newsflash, people like playing with strong cards. There are definitely a lot of other cards that I could have talked about in this video, especially the 2 I put on here. Yeah, some, like, these cards weren't that great overall. You know, people started to cut them as time went on, but they still did get experimented with, and I could have talked about a lot of experimentation that went on to Libram Paladin. I mean, Libram Paladin was technically playable for 4 expansions, right? So there's a lot of experimentation that could have gone with it, but yeah. That's going to be it for me. I will see you guys next time, and peace out.
Shadows are rising again!
Darker than they've ever been. As evil descends from the skies, the world cries out, how will we survive? Out of the heart dusty tomb. They grab their whips and fedoras. These legends of the past know exactly what to do.